If you've ever looked at a wine barrel and wondered what you can possibly make out of one, then you've come to the right place. In this episode, I'm going to show you how I build these amazing little rocking chairs that everybody loves. And as a bonus, I'll share with you all the tips and all the tricks that I've learned to make these the easy way.
One thing I've never heard anyone talk about when working with wine barrels is how challenging it can be. Wine barrels are curved in every single direction possible. And when you initially look at a wine barrel, they can appear to be pretty user-friendly. Once you pull one apart and you get a proper perspective of how they're actually constructed, none of the staves are the same width. They're all different, they all taper in both directions, and they're curved and they're cupped. And once we understand that building one of these chairs and using wine barrels is not like working with conventional lumber, the whole process will go a lot more smoothly. Something I wish someone had have told me when I first started building these was to just let go of the perfectionist within you. Let it be a wine barrel and let the character speak. Once you stop fighting the curves, you'll have an absolute blast making these. So I guess my point is, if you're a beginner and you've never made one before, just take it easy on yourself. Enjoy the process, enjoy the imperfections, and just let it tell a story. So once I've got my wine barrels blown apart, I'm just going to take everything inside and give all the staves a rough sand. Don't be too precious with this. You'll never get them perfect. Just knock off all the splinters and stuff. As they dry out and they're exposed to the air, you're going to get little micro cracks and stuff anyway. Another thing to consider is where you source your wine barrels from. Something I've been caught out on a couple of times when buying these from wineries, they don't always clean them out before they sell them. There's a couple of times I've brought them and they've had like 2 or 3 inches of wine sludge in the bottom, and when I've busted them open, it's just gone everywhere. Hence why I now bust my wine barrels apart outside. Don't do it in your workshop on your concrete slab because you'll stain it, it will never come out. The next thing I like to do is lay everything out in order of size. I think in any wine barrel, there's no 2 staves that are the exact same size. If you try and match them up perfectly, you'll drive yourself insane, so close enough is good enough. I should take the time to mention that you will not need this many staves to build one rocking chair. I'm building a batch of 4 to sell. One wine barrel should give you approximately 1.3 rocking chairs. Once I get everything sorted by size, I normally go back through and allocate each size piece to a part of the rocking chair. If you know me and you know my builds and my building style, it's not very often I actually have dimensions for anything. I'm a very intuitive builder and I'm a very visual person. This chair that you can see here on my workbench is the one that I have fine-tuned, and this is something I always use as a reference. Don't worry if you don't have a chair to reference, there's still plenty of information in here for you to make one for yourself. But the method I'm about to show you is a really useful tip if you're going to be making multiples of anything. You can perfect one chair and then just replicate it every time. Because I'm making a bunch of these, I'm using my existing chair to create a template, and then I can make 8 identical sides because I'm making 4 chairs. And this template is going to come in so handy because as I build each chair, I'll be able to just lay the pieces out on the template, cut them to the right size, and screw them together in the right orientation. One thing to note when making wine barrel rocking chairs, or any chair for that matter, your angles and your dimensions matter. If your seat bottom's too wide, it becomes hard to sit in, hard to get out of. If your backrest is not at the right angle, it becomes really uncomfortable. The goal for this is to be ergonomic and pleasant to sit in, somewhere to relax. But don't let that stress you out. As long as you're regularly checking in with what you're building, doing a bit of testing, and just take your time and enjoy the process, you'll be okay. And don't stress if you don't get the angles and everything right the first time. Remember, it's only wooden screws. You can pull it apart and put it back together as many times as you need to. I know that seems kind of counterintuitive, but that's kind of how I learned how to build my chairs. When I first started making these, there was no plans, there wasn't really anyone making them, and there was no how-tos. So I just kind of had to wing it, fine-tune it until I got everything perfect. Another handy little tip, get yourself one of these drill bits. These are a countersink drill bit with a depth stop. They allow you to drill your pilot hole. It'll create a countersink for the head of your screw to sit in, and also you can adjust how deep you want that countersink to be. By using one of these drill bits and pre-drilling your holes, you'll eliminate any risk of splitting the wood, and the countersink creates a space for your screw head to sit so they're not protruding out and snagging on anyone's clothes. Anytime I build a batch of these chairs, I basically start from the ground up. The first piece I lay out is the rocker, and then I build it up from there. And I guess you can kind of consider these side pieces as the scaffold. These are the main structure of the chair, and that'll allow you to attach all the other pieces to it. So next step in the build is to cut all our seat bottom pieces to length. Once we've got them cut, we can go ahead and screw them in. Like I said earlier, it's important to not make the seat too deep. Otherwise, it's too hard to get in and out of, and it kind of cuts into your legs. I usually find 4 slats is the perfect amount. Once I've got my seat bottom slats cut to size, then I'll take 2 of the side pieces and start attaching the seat bottom slats, screwing them in from the underside. I usually start by screwing 1 slat, and that sort of sets the width of the chair, and then I put in the bottom brace that ties the 2 rockers together. Once I get that in, I'll go through and screw in the rest of the slats. Once you've got your seat bottom slats attached, it's a really good opportunity to flip the chair back over onto the rockers and just give it a quick little sit and make sure that you've got your spacing right. That way, if you do have to adjust anything, you don't have to pull the entire chair apart. And also building them in this way creates an opportunity to customize it depending on who you're building it for. Some people are short, some people are tall, and not all bums are made equal. And once you've got that sorted, it's time to move on to the back. For the back supports, I normally start with the center support, and I use the piece that has the hole in it that was normally the wine barrel bung. I know it seems like such a small detail, but it's usually the first thing people comment on when they see one of these chairs. So this process is pretty straightforward. It just involves finding the center of the chair base, finding the center of the board, setting it at the height that you're happy with, and then screwing it in place. I normally fan my back slats out, but there's definitely an opportunity here for you to customize your chair the way that you like it visually. Another little tip: the length of the armrest and the length of the seat bottom will determine the angle of your backrest. If you want your backrest to be more laid back, you just create a longer armrest. If you want your back to be more upright, create a shorter armrest. This is one of those moments where calibrating things really pays off. Getting this right turns your chair from something that's just a good looking novelty or a conversation piece to something that people really love spending time in. And this is what makes them sell so well. Having a good looking chair is one thing, and I feel like every time someone sees a nice chair, they're like, oh, that's really beautiful. But it doesn't always transfer when someone sits in it. It's usually the make or break thing. It's definitely something you want to get right. And speaking of making things right, when I put this back brace in, I always cut a little angled notch. This just allows the brace to sit flush on the bottom of the armrests and also allows the backrests to sit flush on the brace. Speaking of backrests and braces, don't get too discouraged if once you've got all your slats on, they're not perfectly parallel with each other. We're going to run another brace midway up the backrest, and this will just help tie all those slats together, and it'll also give the chair some added strength. And to finish these off, I always give them a good coat of tung oil. It's super hard wearing, it holds up to the weather really well, and it just creates a really nice hard wearing finish. So to wrap everything up, I hope you're inspired to build yourself a rocking chair, or maybe a few, even start selling some. I hope you can benefit from my experience and avoid some of the challenges that I don't hear other people talking about. If you liked this video and you found some value in it, it'd mean the absolute world for me to go and hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, and let me know what you think. And I'll catch you on the next one, guys. Peace.